session under the Atal Academy from 6th September 2021. This is the second session of the fourth day. Now, our esteemed speaker is for this session Dr. P.J. Philip from NIT Kurukshetra. He is not a new member of the Central University of Haryana family, but he has been with us for a very long time, and we have got him previously on many other faculty development programs. We are really honored to have with him today with us. Sir, please start your session.
Thank you very much. A very warm good morning to all of you, organizers and participants. I'm extremely happy to be part of this FDP, particularly because we have, I believe we have very young fellow teachers as participants. And for me, it's always a pleasure to share my knowledge and experiences with young faculty. I've put in nearly 40 years of teaching, and I've no hesitation in saying that it's been an extremely rewarding experience for me. So every time I interact with fellow teachers, it's always my effort to transfer that joy to the young teachers. For our interaction today, I've got a PPT which would run side by side, and I hope technically it runs well. I hope it's clear and visible to all. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes,
okay. Yes. I've titled my presentation Teacher as a Leader and Teacher as a Stress Buster. I understand that this FDP is all about teachers being leaders and teachers also facilitating team activities. Apart from regular teaching, that is a transference of knowledge, a teacher is expected to act as a leader, and a teacher is also expected to develop team skills and team spirit among colleagues and among students. So from that point of view, I believe the topic of this FDP has been very thoughtfully chosen, and I'm extremely happy about that. Normally, it would be on a technical topic, but here is some topic that is applicable to all kinds of teachers, irrespective of their area of specialization. I've titled, as I said, Teacher as a Leader, Teacher as a Stress Buster. I'll just touch upon very briefly on teacher as a leader, because I know that there are other resource persons who would be going into depth of this aspect, teacher as a leader. I would mainly focus on teacher as a stress buster or stress management, which would be the second part of my presentation. When we say teacher as a leader, and when we suddenly try to understand, examine who are the great leaders of the world, and then we would know the importance of leadership. So what I have in my first slide is a number of great leaders. Normally, if I put a question to a class, name a few great leaders, some of these names are almost always mentioned. So I've got a few great leaders of the world first. Then I would try and go on to some of the great leaders of India as well. Now, when we say leaders of the world, one of the first names almost always that comes up is that of this great man, Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, as all of you know, was a former president of the United States. And he is considered to be one of the greatest presidents of the US of all times. And his major contribution as a leader of one of the great countries of the world was that he was responsible for abolishing slavery in the United States. Now, slavery was so rampant, so common in the United States at that time, and a lot of people believed it was a right for them to have slaves. What really happened was the US, in order to find cheap labor to work in the uh, homes and work in the fields and estates, they brought in a lot of Negroes, black people from Africa, who were converted to slaves, right? But here was this great man, Abraham Lincoln, who said, men are born equal. So there is no master and slave. And therefore, he got this abolished and he's remembered for that. Another great name is that of Nelson Mandela. All of you know him as the great leader of modern South Africa. South Africa was a country that practiced what we call apartheid. Apartheid means racial discrimination, discrimination on the basis of race. This is something that was there uh, for a long time. But here was a man who fought against that, who was put in jail and who was in jail for nearly 27 years and came out and successfully led the fight against apartheid and later became the president of South Africa. Now, his contribution, abolishing racial discrimination, or what we call apartheid in South Africa, another great leader of the world. This, of course, coming to modern world, uh, Abraham Lincoln is not anymore there, nor is Nelson Mandela. But here is a modern leader, uh, Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel is the Chancellor of Germany and today considered to be the most powerful woman in the world. She very successfully has been leading Germany. Germany, as all of us know, is one of the most developed countries of the world. And she, in spite of being a woman, has been very successful in leading Germany through difficult times. And she's been successfully chosen to be the chancellor after many times, right? And today considered to be the most powerful woman in the world, uh, Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany. Now, I thought I could give you two examples of leaders from the world of technology. Who can forget Steve Jobs here? Steve Jobs, who gave us Apple and today made mobiles such a common thing in the world. And it was the technological development that Apple made, and now, of course, followed by so many other companies that has made it possible for communication to be so very common. So here is a leader in the area of mobile communication, Steve Jobs of Apple. So a technology leader. Another technology leader whom we can't forget is obviously Bill Gates of Microsoft. Here is a person who revolutionized the software industry. Microsoft is known for its Windows, and then which is what we use in our PCs, right? And here is another technology leader, and today considered to be among the richest people in the world. He always comes in the top three richest, one, two, three, right? Now, I gave the examples of these five great world leaders to say that these are individuals who transformed human society, right? So when you're a leader, you have this opportunity to make a big impact, not only in your immediate surroundings, but maybe in the whole country and even in the whole world. These are wonderful examples of that. Now, let me just random pick up a few leaders from India, our country. I've purposely avoided political leaders. I don't want any kind of controversy there. So, besides the political leaders, some of the great leaders of India I've just identified here, starting obviously with Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi, I should have included in the world leaders because there are a lot of people who believe that he is perhaps the most influential leader in the world. Einstein said about Mahatma Gandhi later that succeeding generations would find it difficult to believe that a person like this ever walked on this earth, right? The kind of leadership that he provided, the kind of non-violent agitation that he led, and then finally winning the freedom for India. So when we think of Indian leaders and even world leaders, Mahatma Gandhi's name is always right at the top, right? So Mahatma Gandhi. Here I look at another technology leader from India who's transformed telecommunication in India. Sam Pitroda is known as a person who revolutionized telecommunication in India, starting with landline communication, and later, of course, now to mobile communication. He was responsible for making telephones so very common in India, right? Sam Pitroda, another great leader. Ratan Tata, all of you know, leader of one of India's major industrial houses, the Tatas. And he's been a wonderful leader for the Tatas, and not only for the Tatas, he's considered one of the greatest business leaders in the country. On this side, we have APJ Abdul Kalam, who was, of course, the former president of India, but he was also a great technology leader. We call him the missile man of India because of the great contribution he made in the area of missiles. He's had great contribution in the area of missiles and also in space technology, right? And later went on to become the president of India. But here is a person who would be also remembered as a great teacher leader, right? So I put him here not so much because he was the president of India, not so much because he was a technology leader, but he was also a great leader as a teacher, right? APJ Abdul Kalam. The next lady I have here cannot be forgotten. Although she originally did not belong to India, she came to India, understood India's poverty, and did lived in India and contributed so much for the underprivileged people, right? So the organization that she set up, Missionaries of Charity, did wonderful work in India for uplifting the poor and the downtrodden and the suffering. So much so, she was later given the Nobel Peace Prize, right? Originally not from India, but came and adopted India as her home, Mother Teresa. Another name from technology and business is that of Narayana Murthy, who is the founder of one of India's top IT business organization, Infosys. It was through Infosys and through TCS that we had India becoming a leader in the area of IT, information technology. And he was right in the forefront of India's revolution in IT. Narayana Murthy, the founder chairman of Infosys. Another name, a lady who worked mostly outside India, but today considered one of the greatest business leaders of the world, Indra Nooyi, who became the chairman and managing director of one of the world's biggest companies, that is PepsiCo, right? And therefore, when we think of leaders and when we think of business leaders and when we think of women leaders of the world, Indra Nui's name is always there. I said Angela Merkel is considered the most powerful woman in the world. And Indra Nui's name also comes up right at the top as one of the most influential women leaders of the world. Indra Nui, born and brought up here in India, but went on to be a, a great leader while working in the United States. And the last name, when I think of India and leaders, how could you ever forget MS Dhoni, the former captain of Indian cricket team? He is considered to be one of the greatest captains of India, winning many, many trophies and always an exemplary leader. He is also known as the Captain Cool because even in extremely difficult situations, challenging situations, he's remained very, very cool. Right now, I just random picked up these people just to give you an idea how leaders are so very important in the progress of mankind, in the progress of a country, right? Therefore, when we say teacher leaders, I want you to understand the significance of being a leader. Normally, a question that we all raise, I'm raising a question with you. The question that we normally raise is, what can one person do? We normally ask that question. Very often when we are met with a challenging situation, you ask this question, what can one person do? And therefore you withdraw from that situation, saying then, I'm alone and I can't do anything. But what I want you to understand in this context of our discussion is that although one person most of the time cannot do much, right? I agree with that. But one person in a position of leadership can do so much. Now, when we look at individual cases of the great leaders I had put up there, including foreign leaders, world leaders, and the Indian leaders, in each case, you will find how, in spite of being an individual, each one of them was so very impactful, so very influential, and they made a drastic change in their environment. So, the first point I'm trying to make is that normally we say that one person, one individual cannot do much. I want you to understand one individual in a position of leadership can achieve so much, can do so much, can have such a great impact, right? And therefore, when you as a teacher, you have this opportunity to be a leader, then you are in a position to make a great impact. And I want you to understand that question. Now, I'll just take a few slides to just touch upon leadership and also the teacher as a leader. The teacher as a leader. Leadership is the ability of an individual to guide and influence a set of followers. In its very, you could go into a highly technical definition of leadership, but I am just giving a simple definition, which is leadership is the ability of an individual to guide and influence a set of followers. Now, if you take this to be a definition of leadership, then let us see whether this fits into our teaching profession and whether we can consider a teacher a leader. In the teaching learning environment, the teacher is the leader and the students are the followers. So, when we say leadership, we have a leader and we have a set of followers. In the teaching learning environment, right, what do we have? We have the teacher as a leader and the students, the children, as the followers. And therefore, a teacher is a leader. The teacher is in a position to guide them and influence them. We saw in the first point where I gave a simple definition that is, a leadership is about an individual guiding and influencing a set of followers. Now, I'm sure all of you would agree A teacher is in a position to guide his students and also influence his students. And therefore, we have to say a teacher is a leader. Now, let us see what is the process of leadership. What are the different activities we normally undertake as a teacher leader? Just a few points there. Helping the group have a vision. The first and the foremost thing that's important for any group is to have a clear vision as to what they want to do. A vision means some kind of a dream, right, that needs to be achieved. So when you have a vision, when you have a dream, the group is willing to work towards that dream. Now, it is a responsibility of the leader to help the team develop a good vision as to what they want to do through their activities, right? Now, in case of a teacher leader, he should encourage his students to have a vision about what they want to do in future, right? Clear vision, a dream about what they want to be, what they want to do, right? So it is always good for the teacher as a leader to encourage his students to have a clear idea of a vision. That is the first thing to do as a leader. Inspiring the group towards achieving the vision. The second thing is the teacher as a leader should be able to inspire, articulate the vision very clearly to the students and inspire them that this is a wonderful vision that you have. It's a wonderful dream that you have. You should work towards achieving this, right? So inspiring the group towards achieving this. The third activity in the process of leadership is setting achievable goals in the path to the vision. Vision is a distant dream, but you reach that vision or a dream step by step. So you need to set small goals for yourself, right? And try and achieve those goals. When you achieve one goal, you go on to the next and to the next and to the next, right? And that is how you achieve the ultimate vision. So setting achievable goals. So in case of your students also, you should be able to do this, setting achievable goals. Telling them it's a wonderful vision or a dream that you have, but you need to break it up into small goals, and that should be made an achievable goal. Helping them with the necessary knowledge and skills to achieve the goals. This is what you do as a teacher, giving them the necessary knowledge and the necessary skills so that they are able to achieve the goals. And by achieving many goals, you achieve your vision or the dream. Constantly controlling their activities and direction. Now, this is important. The students can go wayward, can go astray. They've set a dream for themselves, a vision for themselves. But you, as a leader, as a teacher leader, you need to be controlling their activities and ensuring that they are on the proper path, they are in the proper direction. So constantly you should keep watch over the activities of your students to ensure that they are not going astray away from their path of achieving the dream. So this is extremely important. So some steps that would make up the process of leadership you can do, you can identify for a teacher leader. Uh, the last point I gave there, applauding their success. Always remember, when a goal is achieved, you should applaud your students, your followers. It's only then they would feel inspired and encouraged to go further onto the next goal. So it's extremely important for the leader, and for a teacher, there is nothing more important than applauding, saying sabash to the students. For the students, it is a big thing to get a pat on the back from the teacher. So applauding their successes is also an extremely important activity that you have to do as a teacher leader. Uh, what are some of the qualities of a leader? I'm again looking at it from a teacher leader point of view. You have to be very self confident. Self confidence is an important quality desired in a teacher. It's only when you're confident about what you're doing, about yourself, about your abilities, that you can transform that confidence to your followers. In this case, transform the confidence to your students. So you should be confident about what you're doing. You should be happy about what you're doing. As a teacher, one of the first things you should ask yourself is, am I happy being a teacher? Am I proud being a teacher? And therefore, am I confident being a teacher? So self-confidence is an important quality in a teacher leader. Domain knowledge and skills, I don't need to expand this. If your students, your followers are to have respect for you should have good knowledge of your domain, your area of specialization, and you should know all the skills required for that particular area. So, this is another quality. A leader will not be respected if he is not good in that area where he is operating. So, domain knowledge and skills very important. I don't need to expand on this again. A good leader needs to be a good communicator. Therefore, I want all of you teachers to pay special attention to this quality. Communication. It's not enough to say, I know things. But as a teacher, you're supposed to be communicating that knowledge, that understanding to your students. So, as a teacher leader, being a good communicator is an extremely important quality. Effective problem solver. This is what is expected of a leader. A group would always be coming up or facing problems. And in that case, you as a leader, you should be able to tackle that problem. So your followers, your students would expect you to be a problem solver. And ability to encourage and inspire, I already mentioned, if a student or a group of students achieve something, achieve goals, then you should be able to applaud them. You should be able to encourage and inspire them. And willingness to take risk. It's not hunky-dory all the time. It's not good times all the time. Sometimes a certain level of risk need to be taken. And to do that, you should have confidence. Confidence in yourself, confidence in your team, in your group, and confidence in your ability to handle difficult situations. So, willingness to take risks. And one more point, ability to remain calm and exercise control in crisis. Off and on, the group would be faced with crises. In that case, you as a leader, are you able to remain calm? We call MS Dhoni Captain Cool because in extremely challenging uh, situations, we saw that Dhoni never got flustered. He always remained cool. As a result, the end result of the team was extremely good, right? So, ability to remain calm and exercise control in crisis is another confidence. These are some of the qualities which I just identified. You could add to this list, and then as a teacher leader, you just cross check with yourself whether you possess these qualities or not. And if you don't possess these qualities, you should make efforts to imbibe, add these qualities to your personality, right? So, this is something. Now, these are just a few points that I mentioned because I'm convinced a teacher is a leader. And because I'm interacting with teachers, I want all of you to be leaders. And remember what I said in the beginning, a leader, although single, is in a position to make a big difference to his followers, big difference to the environment, and big difference in the world as a whole, depending on your contribution. So, as a teacher, remember you are a leader, and as a leader, you are in a position to make a big difference, make a great impact. And therefore, take your profession of teaching seriously. And remember, as a teacher, you are a leader, right? This is the first point I wanted to come. The second point I wanted to say is, apart from being a leader, we expect the teacher to be a stress buster. A stress buster, a person who helps somebody to come out of stressful situations. Now, stress management has been made a compulsory part of every FDP by the All India Council for Technical Education. Right? So, let us uh, raise this question as to why stress management. Why has this been made a compulsory part of all the FDPs? Right? First is, all of us know, although stress is very much a part of life, in recent times, let us say 1 year and a half, it is the COVID pandemic that has created more stress. And because of this, stress management has become so stress and stress management has become extremely important in the present day life. So, because of the COVID pandemic, I don't need to expand on that. You would know things. And as we go along, we would look at that as well. Now, how difficult is this pandemic? All of us know we call it a pandemic because it has affected the whole world, almost all the countries of the world. And irrespective of a country being rich or poor, this has been affected. So it has affected the most developed countries of the world. The United States is affected, Japan is affected, Germany is affected, England is affected, and the whole of Europe is affected. So it has affected the most developed countries of the world, and it has also affected the developing countries of the world like India. So it is a pandemic. It affects all the countries. And as a result, number of deaths have gone into 5 million, 50 lakhs, as we say here in India. Imagine, more than 50 lakh people have died from this disease. And therefore, it is a huge challenge. Now, therefore, we are trying to get out of it. Life has drastically changed. I'm sure all of you would agree. In the last 1 year and a half, life as we knew it before has undergone great transformation. A lot of changes have been brought about. And from that point of view, this is such an extremely important event in the history of mankind. Loss of livelihood. One of the most difficult things that has happened is because of lockdowns, because of inactivity, people have lost their livelihood. That means they've lost their income. As a result, just survival alone, being alive alone, has become a challenge now. Individual survival, family survival, society survival, the country survival. That has become a big challenge because a lot of people have lost their livelihood. Unemployment is at a very high level at the moment, right? So loss of livelihood. Loss of near and dear ones, I'm sure, again, something that has shaken the world, right? Uh, and this creates stressful situation. When you lose a close relative, when you lose somebody near and dear to you, like parents, husband, wife, children, near relatives, that creates a lot of stress. And therefore, another reason why modern life or present day life has become stressful is because of this as well. And then I would say there is a general feeling of helplessness. You don't know what to do because we don't know much about this disease, COVID. And therefore, there is a lot of trial and error that is going on. What should be done? What are the preventive measures? What are the curative actions to be taken? Whether we should take this dose of vaccine or this dose. There's a lot of confusion around because the whole thing is something new to us, mankind. So there is a general feeling of helplessness. Because of all this, present day life has become extremely stressful, right? Uh, and as a result, I'm sure a few years from now, when modern history of mankind would be written, this period, let us say 2021 period, so far, let us say about a year and a half, would always be known as the worst of times, right? So the way to describe this would be the worst of times, right? Now, this is a quotation this taken from a very famous work of literature, and a lot of people these days are using this expression to describe what is happening in the present day world, that we are going through the worst of times. I just briefly tell you, this line comes from this person, the very famous uh, man of literature, English literature, Charles Dickens. I'm sure most of you would have read his novels. Most of you would have studied Charles Dickens in your school. Now, there is a novel that is written, A Tale of Two Cities. And that novel begins with this line. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So somebody today trying to describe the last year and a half would describe it using these words of Charles Dickens. It was the worst of times, right? And therefore, I took this example. One more example to describe this is another expression that is frequently used these days is annus horribilis. This expression means horrible annus, that is horrible year. So we said it was the worst of times, a worst year, and then it was a horrible year. Another expression many people are using to describe the last 1 year and a half. And this is again a quotation taken from the speech of a very famous person. And the famous person is this person, Queen Elizabeth of England, the head of state of England. While she was giving a speech describing a particular year a few years back, she said the last 1 year was annus horribilis, which means it was a horrible year. But this was not about the present 2020, 21. It was a few years back. But many people are using this expression to describe this particular year, annus horribilis, given by Queen Elizabeth. I just gave you two examples of expressions that are being used to describe the last 1 year. One, it was the worst of times, given by Charles Dickens, and then it was a year, it was a horrible year. This is an expression given by Queen Elizabeth of England, Queen Elizabeth II of England, the head of state of England. Annus horribilis, that means horrible year. So, what I'm trying to say is we are going through an extremely difficult time, worst of times or horrible times. And therefore, stress is natural to human life today. And therefore, if you want to survive, you have to be able to manage stress. And that is exactly what we are going to discuss. Now, this is our situation today. This picture, this graphic would explain. We have problems screaming at us from all sides. So, stress all around us in our day to day lives, and every minute of our life today, we are surrounded by situations that create stress. So, our condition is something like the lady here who's surrounded by stressful situations. Right. Now, let us ask a very fundamental question. And we say, what is stress? We all understand what is stress because we experience stress and we do our bit to get over stress. But let us look at it in some depth just to find out what is stress. Stress is the tension or pressure we feel in our bodies as we respond to everyday events that make us feel uncomfortable. When we examine our day to day lives, I'm sure every one of us would realize that we are under great tension, we are under extreme pressure all the time, some problem or the other. We are surrounded by events and people that would create stress for us. So, stress is the tension or pressure we feel in our bodies as we respond to everyday events, right? Simple definition. Now, the second thing that we need to understand about stress is a natural part of living. If you're living on this earth, you cannot live without stress. Can we ever imagine a life without problems? And when you have problems, it's only natural that we have stress from problems. So, this is something that all of us understand very clearly. Stress is a natural part of living. We have problems when we have too much stress, we feel tense. So, tension is created out of a situation that gives us a lot of this stress. So, we have problems when we have too much stress and we feel tense, right? When we have too little stress, we feel unmotivated and bored. Now, here is a twist to this. We would normally say that we need to manage stress because it interferes with our life, it interferes with what we are doing. But here it is mentioned, the last point is if there is no stress or if there is very little stress, we would become lazy, we would become unmotivated, and life would become very boring. It is stressful situations that activates humans to do things, right? And therefore, it keeps you very active. And if it was not for these stressful situations, you would have been unmotivated and you would have felt extremely bored. So these are few points that we should remember about stress. That stress means only tension, it is natural. We do have problems, but we can come out of it. And when we have too little of stress, remember, we become very bored and unmotivated. I'm continuing with that basic question as to what is stress. Stress is the feeling of being under too much mental and emotional pressure. Now, this is another way of looking at stress because very regularly, constantly, we remain under mental pressure and emotional pressure. So, a feeling that we are under mental and emotional pressure is what we could call stress. Pressure turns into stress when one feels unable to cope. Now, stress is because you're faced with a problem, you're faced with a challenge, and you're not able to find a solution to that. And because you can't find a solution to the problem that has been raised, then you tend to actually become stressful. So pressure turns into stress when one feels unable to cope. Stress is a physiological and psychological response to circumstances. Now, stress means there is a certain environment in which you exist all the time, and any change in that environment, physiological or psychological, is bound to create stress in you because you would want to actually respond to those situations. So, from that point of view, stress is created by physiological and psychological circumstances. And what is a commonly used expression is stressor. A stressor is a situation, occurrence, or factor causing stress. So something that causes stress is known as stressor. So some of the basic things that about stress which I thought you should know. Now, Interestingly, there are two types of stress. Stress that is very desirable and stress that is undesirable. Normally, when we talk of stress, we talk about negative stress, undesirable stress, right? And that's exactly what we are going to do. There is a stress called eustress, which is a positive, good stress, and it is a beneficial stress. The prefix eu in Greek means good. So eustress means good stress. Now, we call a stress good if it is in some way good for you and is beneficial to you and others, actually, right? So, eustress is the name of one type of stress. Now, eustress is a positive stress. So, something that is good for you is what we say. And the moment we say it's a positive stress, it mobilizes physical and psychological capabilities. A person's physical and psychological capabilities are triggered by a positive stress. Increase alertness. The moment you become stressful, you become increasingly alert. And alert for what? Alert to solve the challenge or the problem you're facing. And therefore, you would find a solution to the problem or to the challenge. So it increases alertness. And we already touched upon this. It motivates and energizes your followers, your students. It motivates them and it energizes them. Some of the examples I could mention from a teacher taught situation. As a teacher, uh, you would know preparing for an examination for a student is very stressful. So, in such a situation, you as a teacher can actually motivate and help them prepare for the examination. Preparing for an examination is a stressful situation for many students. The second stressful situation is preparing for a speech. Now, if you have to make a speech or a presentation like what I'm doing now, you tend to get very tense. You keep wondering as to what the students would feel, etc., etc. But what we need to know is that preparing for a speech should come very naturally to you, particularly if you're a teacher. A teacher is forever communicating, interacting with fellow teachers and students. So in that case, preparing for a speech should not become so very stressful. But if you're not well prepared, quite obviously that will become a preparation. Preparing for a competition. This is also important. Whatever be the competition, you tend to prepare for it. So preparing for an examination is a stressful situation. Preparing for a speech is a stressful situation. And preparing for a competition is also a stressful situation. Now, when we see here, although it is stressful, what we need to understand is because of the stress, you prepare yourself better. So in an examination, when you come under stress, you want to focus on preparing yourself better. And so is the case with a speech or a competition, that you need to prepare for it. I always say that don't go to a speech situation unless you are prepared for it, right? And if you're prepared for it, it quite obviously improves your performance. So types of stress, what we are talking about is eustress, which is good stress or positive stress, which is essential for us to improve our performance. Eustress, therefore, is important for us in life. That is the last point I was. Now, look at this situation. We are looking at the fastest man on earth today. This is Usain Bolt. He is considered to be the fastest man on earth. because he's able to run the 100 meters at a very short time. So he's considered for that. This picture depicts Usain Bolt preparing for the 100 meters race. Now, this is a stressful situation for him, but if it was not for that stress, he would not prepare well, and if he was not prepared well, he would not be able to perform well. So this situation at the start of a 100 meters race is an extremely stressful situation. But in many ways, it is a positive stress. It is a good stress. It is what we would call technically, it is eustress, right? And that would help him improve his performance. Usain Bolt, the fastest man on earth today. Let me continue with types of stress. It is one we said eustress is the positive or the good stress. But there is a negative stress which we all experience, which we call distress, which is a negative stress. When we undergo distress, the chances are that our performance would drop, right? So this is called distress, and this is what we need to manage. This is what we need to treat, and this is what we need to be extremely careful about, distress. Uh, this is the type of stress that we normally talk about. It is distress. It is not so much eustress. This stress happens when we go beyond coping capabilities. Very often, when we're faced with a problem, we have the ability to cope with that problem. But the moment it goes beyond that line, then we come under stress. So, if your stress goes beyond your coping capabilities, then that results in stress, and that results in bad stress or what we call distress. When we are under stress, it feels very heavy and unpleasant, right? Physically, of course, so many things would happen. Mentally, also, we become very heavy and unpleasant. As a result of which, it decreases our performance. So, if it is positive stress, it drives us to better performance. If it is negative stress, then we tend to go into a state we call distress, and the type of stress we mostly suffer is this. So decreased performance can lead to mental and physical problems. If you are continuously under stress, it quite obviously would affect your mind. So mental problems can result. It could also lead to physical problems. So bad stress can lead to both mental and physical problems. So bad stress is something we need to avoid. Here is another situation that happened recently. This picture is about the Euro Cup finals, Euro Cup 2020 finals, where England and Italy finished the regular time with the score at 1-all. 1-all was the score, and the rule says if two countries were playing against each other, they are unable to come to a result, then it can be actually decided by extra time and then by a penalty shootout. So in this case, when uh, uh, England was playing Italy in the Euro 2020 football finals, regular time and extra time yielded no definite result. The result was 1-all. So they went into penalty shootout. Here, This was an extremely stressful situation. Now, this situation can actually drive you into better performance, so or lead you into distress and into negative performance. In case of these, there were three uh, penalty shooters who missed the penalty. In this case, it was Rashford, a very famous player, very effective footballer, but in this situation, the stress overcame his performance. As a result, he missed the penalty. In fact, three of them missed the penalty. As a result, England lost the finals and the Euro Cup. Right? Now, what I was trying to say is, in case of Usain Bolt, before taking off, before starting the race, he was under eustress, that is positive stress, that can carry him into better performance. But in case of these players, probably their stress went beyond the level and affected their performance, and they could not convert the penalty. As a result, England lost the match. This is negative stress, which is called distress. We should be aware of both, and we should actually exploit positive stress, and we should manage the negative stress. That is what I'm trying to say. Now, what are the stresses or things that cause stress in modern day times, in the present times? Which are some of the stresses? Stressor, as we saw earlier, is something that causes stress. And therefore, let us look at some of the stresses, some of the things that cause stress in present day times. Stressors are situations that are stress provoking. One, health problems. If you suffer from any health problem, that becomes extremely stressful, right? So health problems can create stress. Financial problems, I don't need to elaborate on that. We know that financial problems can create stress. Relationship problems can create stress, right? Even if it is close relationship like husband and wife, sometime having differences, fights, etc., and then deciding to separate. But that particular relationship, when it is broken, it can create immense amount of stress. And that is what happens in most cases. So relationship problems, work-related problems, a lot of problems we face in the work arena, in the place where we work, and that can become stressful. Changes in life. We're having a smooth life and suddenly some change happens, and that can become extremely stressful. Loss of loved ones. I again need not explain this. If we lose somebody close to us, particularly in the immediate family, then that becomes an extremely sad and stressful situation. And daily hassles. You know, in our day-to-day work, there are many things that can create stress. Few examples I've given. If you reach work late, your boss would be unhappy, and that can create stress. If you're caught up in a traffic jam, that can create stress. You know you have to reach a particular destination at this time, and if this jam is not going to allow you to do that, you become very stressful, right? So this is another day-to-day thing that you could talk of. Types of stresses. What are the types of stresses? Internal stresses, something that comes from within. Distressing thoughts. Depressing or distressing thoughts can create stress. Unpleasant memories can create stress. Emotions like sadness or anger inside can create stress. Sensations like pain or discomfort health related, that can create stress. So some of the internal stresses I have pointed out here: distressing thoughts, unpleasant memories, emotion like sadness or anger, sensations like pain or discomfort. Now let us go on to some external stresses. Situations with negative impact. So if you're in a situation with negative impact, that can create stress. Another person's negative behavior can create stress. Any kind of physical harm you suffer because of something that is happening externally or in the environment, if you're injured or physically unfit, that can create problems. Work pressure, the amount of work that you put in, and almost all companies would drive you, your bosses there would drive you to work more and more. And if you continue to work more and more, they would think that you enjoy working more and more and therefore load you with more and more work. So work pressure can also be. Stressors during the pandemic. Now, these are general things that we argue. That is, in this case, it was to say that something that happens in our life that can bring about stress. Now, stresses during the pandemic. Now, let us focus attention specifically on the last 1 year, 1.5 years. Isolation, lockdown, quarantine. All of us know that these are situations that can create a lot of stress. Now, as we've undergone this, many people are coming forward to explain how they spend their lockdown period, how they spend their isolation or quarantine period, right? They all have stories of how stressful it was. If you lose the job that you were doing, your income stops. So unemployment is another matter for stress in modern times. So the first one was all kinds of isolation, lockdowns, quarantine. Second, unemployment. Loss of business, loss of job can also be identified as loss of dear ones. If you lose a dear one, quite obviously, you come under stress. Financial stress, we talked about. Health threat that can become. Household chores, whatever you do at home, right? They become stressors. And uncertainty in life. You said there is a feeling of helplessness. People just come and say that you can't deal with the stress. So these are some of stressful situations or events or developments during the pandemic that has led to stress. Now, let us try and understand stress in its physiological level. Physiologically means relating to our physique or the body. What is happening? How is stress created in the body? That is what I said, physiology of stress. First of all, when a person encounters a stressor, a chain reaction is set in motion in the brain. Now, something that creates stress, when a person encounters that, you suddenly see that this information goes into your brains. This is the first step. Number two, the brain activates a sympathetic nervous system. The moment a stressor is identified, the brain activates the sympathetic nervous system. Number three, when the nervous system is activated, stress hormones and chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol are pumped into the bloodstream. Here, remember, we are talking about how stress is created in a physical environment. Mentally and physically, stress is created. And physically, what are the changes or activities that happen is what I'm trying to explain. Number four there, this results in the stress response like quickening of the heartbeat and breath, feeling of restless energy, and increases mental alertness. Now, this is what happens. When adrenaline and cortisol are released into the bloodstream, some of the reactions can be this: quickening of the heartbeat and breath, feeling of restlessness, or increased mental alertness, which is positive, right? So, this is the physiology of stress, how stress, physically speaking, uh, happens, right? So, I call it the physiology of stress. Now, this is another thing that becomes very clear to you that the stress performance curve. As you can see here, from an inactive, laid back situation, fatigue sets in, exhaustion, anxiety, and then breakdown. So, this is how stress grows and becomes dangerous, and then would come forward. Now, uh, the stress performance curve very clearly says from too little stress to a stressful situation. It is this shape that we have. Now, now that we know what are the stresses, let us also consider what are the stress bursters. What are the stress bursters? So, what are the things? Now we understand the physiology of stress. So, how can we overcome stress? This is something that all of us should know. Focus on things you can control. Now, there are many external things that you cannot control. So, there is no point being stressful about those things. Focus on things that you can control. And if you focus on that, then you can overcome stress. So, the first advice in this regard is focus on things you can control. Number two, stay away from distressing news. These days, there are a lot of news and information that is spreading around, many of which are not true. So, fake news, as sometimes we get to hear, is plenty now. And when we are subjected to fake news, there is a tendency for us to become stressful. We suddenly hear that this particular vaccine is not working. Even people who've had vaccine are getting COVID disease, right? Suddenly we become very stressful even when we've had two vaccines. So stay away from distressing news. That's extremely important. Stay active and busy. It's only when we sit quiet without much activity that we tend to imagine things. And most of the time, when you imagine, we imagine negative things leading to stressful situations. And that is why here it is mentioned stay active and busy, which is particularly important. Discover joy in the uncommon. This is also extremely important. Now, you don't have to look at things in a big way. There are small things that can actually give you a lot of joy. For example, in your day to day life, there are so many things around you that can give you happiness, that can give you joy, right? So, from that point of view, discover joy in the uncommon. Take a walk and look at the beautiful nature around you. When you see an animal, a new plant, or a new bird, those are things that should give you happiness. So don't look for big things for happiness. Look for small things that can give you happiness, right? Discover joy in the uncommon. Next point is engage in physical activities. Now, this is particularly important to keep your negative stress under control. That is, you should actually be positively engaged in physical activities. If you are engaged in physical activities, chances are that your mind would also be active, and chances are that you would avoid having stress or stressful situations. Meditation and yoga, I'm sure all of you would have heard of this, and you would have heard of this point also, how meditation and yoga, two activities that can help you get rid of stress. So people who practice meditation and practice yoga, the chances are that they would not have much stress. So this is prescribed these days, that you should spend time on meditation and you should spend time on yoga, right? Which can actually be called stress busters, right? And those of us who are working, it's extremely important for us to maintain a work life balance. A work life balance is balancing the demands of your work or your job and with your personal and family life. So when you give too much of time to one at the cost of the other, it can become a very stressful situation. It can create problems leading to stress. So maintaining a work-life balance is particularly important in avoiding stress. Work-life balance, as we said, is about maintaining a balance between the life on the job and life uh, at home, personal or family life. There should be a balance between the two. I'm not suggesting that one should be at the cost of another just by avoiding the other, right? That is not a good sign. In fact, that would create more stress for you. Give sufficient time to your job. At the same time, give quality time to your family, to yourself. Both important. So maintain a work-life balance is important. And scientists and sociologists have said when you help somebody, that is the time, that is when uh, a lot of positive energy is created in you. So be of help to others. This is something that can actually uh, free you from stress, right? So making you happy that you've helped somebody. And during the pandemic period, you will get many opportunities to help others. So if you do that, then that would give you a lot of happiness. And when you get a lot of happiness, quite obviously, you will not come under stress. And this is exactly some. These are things I talk generally about how stress as part of our life. Now, how do you manage stress? This is something that you should keep in mind. So, one thing is stress is very much a part of life. You cannot avoid stress, but we should learn how stress can be managed. Management is doing something effectively, efficiently, and systematic. So if you want to manage stress, you should approach stress management effectively, efficiently, and systematically. You should consider this is part of my life and therefore I should learn to manage it. And this is how I'm going to manage. I'm going to look at stress busters. I'm going to focus on those things so that I can get rid of stress. I can manage stress. So this is management. Stress management is utilizing stress for one's benefit. We talked about use stress, positive stress. And positive stress can be used to actually better performance. So we should try and see that more and more situations are created which can actually free us from stress. Positive use stress. Employing stress busters to control negative stress. So this is what we should be doing. We saw a list of things, and if you employ them, the chances are that you would keep yourself free of stress. What is the process of stress management? What are the steps involved in managing stress? Number one, realizing that stress is natural to human life. This is the first thing that we should all do. You can't avoid stress in human life. Human life is full of problems and full of challenges. And when you are faced with problems, when you are faced with challenges, the result is stress. So you cannot avoid. So you cannot avoid problems, you cannot avoid challenges, and therefore you cannot avoid stress. So this is the first thing that we need to realize, that stress is natural to human life. The second thing, understanding eustress and distress. So in the process of stress management, we should understand what is positive stress and what is negative stress, what we call eustress and distress. And we should actually promote positive stress, eustress, because it would activate you and lead you to better performance. And you should be able to get rid of distress. And therefore, it's important for you to understand both eustress and distress. Then, once you understand that stress is natural to human life and there is positive and negative stresses, then you should develop the skill to manage these two. How to reduce negative stress and how to promote positive stress so that your performance becomes better. Now, making lifestyle alterations to manage stress. I'm sure you would have heard this so very often mentioned, how modern life is full of stresses because of our lifestyle. We've adopted a lifestyle that is extremely stressful. So we need to make changes in our lifestyle. So if we want to manage stress, we need to make changes in our lifestyles. Attending to the problem of stress before it becomes acute. Now remember, when stress reaches an extreme situation, then it becomes a disease almost. So when you identify stress, you need to tackle that at the earliest. So attending to the problems of stress before it becomes acute, before it becomes an extreme situation. So you need to do that as well. Then constantly catering to both the physical and the mental health. You should be able to undertake activities that you would keep yourself mentally alert, mentally healthy, and physically healthy. So there has to be a combination of the two, that your mental health should be taken care of. At the same time, your physical health should be taken care of. If you're mentally and physically healthy, chances are that you will be able to manage stress in a very effective way. And therefore, that is particularly important in the process of stress management. Now, some of the activities given here are helpful in managing stress, as we saw. I've just put up the images. Stress relief strategies, what are to be done. Body relaxation exercises. We just mentioned how physical activities can help you relieve stress. So some of the physical activities prescribed, breathing, the breathing exercises, um, uh, Alom Vilom, etc., deep breathing, etc. So a number of breathing exercises are there. If you do that, that would help you relieve stress. Uh, this obviously talks about how you can be guided by them. So body relaxation exercises, breathing techniques, and guided imagery. Number two, physical exercises, yoga and workout routine that can also lead to avoiding stressful situation. The body becomes prepared if you're physically undertaking some activities, and two activities that are very strongly recommended are yoga and workout exercises. Meditation is another, as we already saw, is another very important activity in managing stress. And then counseling. If you find a situation where uh, the stress within you have crossed the line, gone beyond uh, a line, then there is nothing wrong in seeking the help and advice of a counselor. So, if you approach a counselor would have various methods of dealing with or helping you deal with stress. Uh, Two things I mentioned there: talk therapy, how by discussion you can be helped, and life coaching, how you need to change your lifestyle. That is a life coaching. These are some of the ways, some of the strategies you can adopt in managing stress: body relaxation exercises, physical exercises, meditation, and counseling if that is necessary. Now, what are the causes of work stress? All of us are working, and in a work situation, what are the causes of work stress? If you're unhappy in the job, that can become stressful. So don't let unhappiness creep into a job situation. If you're unhappy about anything that happens around your job, that can become extremely stressful because a good deal of our time we spend on the job. And if on the job you're unhappy, quite obviously that will lead to stress. So that is a cause of a stress at the workplace, unhappy in the job. A second situation can be heavy workload. You need to balance that. Too much of work at the job, at the workplace, can actually lead to exhaustion and stress. So you should be able to decide for yourself what would be an ideal quantity of work that I should. So heavy workload is a cause of stress. Heavy responsibilities, responsibility is something that is good, but if it is heavy, too much of responsibility, that can lead to stress at the workplace. Long hours of work, this is something that we find very common these days. There is demand on your time, long hours of work, that can lead to stress, indifferent management. People above you, your bosses, etc., if they are indifferent to your situation, your job, then that can lead to stress. Unduly high expectation from superiors. Your superiors can have unduly high expectations. If you have reasonable expectations, that was all right. And reasonable expectations is a target that can be achieved, right? So from that point of view, it's extremely important that you balance that as well. Are my bosses, are my seniors, my superiors having unduly high expectations about me? That should be controlled. No say in decision making. You always want that you should have a part to play in decision making wherever you're working. Because once you're part of the decision making, you feel happy and important, and you engage yourself better in the job. So, from that point of view, it's extremely important that you be part of the decision making process. If you're isolated, taken out of the decision making, chances are that you would come under distress or depression, so to say. Now, these days, threat of a job loss is extremely important. If a person loses a job now during the pandemic, then it's extremely difficult for him to get another job. And with the loss of job, he loses income. And as a result of that, his family is affected and he is affected. And this can create a lot of stressful situation. So threat of job loss is another cause of work stress these days. Final point there, dangerous conditions of work. This again can be bring you under stress. If you're working in a situation where there are dangers involved in the work, physical danger particularly, then you can be under stress. You know that if something goes wrong, then there is this danger, and that could threaten your life also. Then that can lead to a lot of stress. These are some situations on the job while you're working that can cause stress. And once you're aware of that, then you can avoid these things from that point of view. Now, teachers and stress. Uh, so far, I was talking about stress in any kind of work situation. Let us specifically look at teachers and stress. So this is something that governs us. So uh, teachers and stress particularly important. Surprisingly, there are a lot of people who take up teaching because they believe teaching is free of stress. But a sincere, committed teacher, there is so much of demand on a teacher that there can be stressful situations. Now, as the first point says, surprisingly, studies have shown that the teaching profession is one of the most stressful. Now, these studies have happened not only in our country, not only in the United States, but the world over. People have identified teaching as a stressful job, right? So, surprisingly so, many of us would think otherwise. But if you are a committed teacher, then there can be stressful situations. A study in the US showed that 1 out of 5 teachers suffer from stress. Imagine that's very, very high. 1 out of 5 teachers suffer from stress. All right. This is a study in the United States. Those of you in the teaching profession should take note of this fact. It's something I want all of you to take note of. That your job, the teaching job, teaching profession can be stressful. And once you understand that, then you should take steps to manage that stress. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Right from the beginning, one should be aware of this and take steps to manage stress. That is it. So let us all be aware of the fact that teaching can be a stressful job. And once you're aware of it, then you can take steps to avoid stress or to manage stress. And therefore, handle stress in the teaching profession and come out of it. Now, let us look at some of the common causes of stress for teachers. This has come out of a study. One can be challenging job demands. You know, teaching is an extremely challenging job if you're a committed teacher. So you would find that the job demands are such that it can be very challenging. And whenever it becomes challenging, it can become stressful. Long working hours. Some of the teachers work for long hours preparing for your classes, dealing with different things. There, for example, if you're evaluating the papers, examination papers that can take long hours, preparing can take long hours, dealing with various students can take long hours. So it can be long hours of work which can lead to stress. Classroom management issues. There are one of the major challenges a teacher faces on the job is how to manage the classes, how to maintain discipline in the class, how to make your classes interesting. These are things that a teacher should constantly think of. And so classroom management issues can become a matter of stress. If you're not able to manage your classes well, then that can become an extremely challenging job. Language lacuna, that is, if your language is not effective, you're not able to communicate effectively on the job as a teacher, which is an extremely important, as we saw earlier also, extremely important quality in a teacher is ability to communicate effectively. So this has to be done. Then less pay relatively. Now, if you're a regular teacher, your pay is satisfactory. But there was a time when the pay was not good. Even today, if you're not a regular teacher, if you're not a confirmed teacher, if you're an ad hoc teacher, temporary teacher, then this becomes a serious problem. Less pay becomes a serious problem. Workplace fatigue and burnout. Burnout is something that can happen to a teacher. Putting too much of stress on yourself, trying to do too many things, that can lead to fatigue, tiredness, and then which can lead to absolute burnout. You reach a situation when you burn out. Working conditions. Not all teachers are lucky enough to get good working conditions, right? Schools and colleges need not give you all good conditions. So if you are working under unsatisfactory working conditions, about your salary and perks and benefits, etc., and about your physical surroundings also, if it's not good, that can lead to stress. So that is another thing. Threat of job loss, which is common to all jobs today, that there is always that fear that we might lose the job. And once you lose the job, you lose the income. And once you lose the income, your ability to survive, your own ability to survive, and your ability to support your family also becomes a big matter of stress. And the last point on that slide, lack of pride in the profession. This is something that I always stress on, that if you want to enjoy your job as a teacher, then you should be extremely proud of what you're doing. Remember, as a teacher, you're doing an extremely important job. Important job not only for your students, but important job for your society and for your country. And once you realize this, that you're doing an important job, you become proud of what you're doing. When you become proud of what you're doing, you would be an effective, committed teacher. That is how it works. So if you're not proud of your profession, that can be a matter of stress. Now, here is a person who recently, when he visited India, said, what is wrong with the Indian teachers? He identified lack of pride, lack of pride as an important reason why teachers in India are not very effective. I'm disappointed, Bill Gates said, that teachers not proud of their profession in India. He said one of the reasons why Indian education system is suffering is because the teachers are not effective, and teachers are not effective because they're not proud of being teachers, right? So I want all of you to be proud of being a teacher. How can we be proud of being a teacher? I want you to be aware of why celebrate the teacher? Why be proud of being a teacher? The first thing is we live in a country and we live in a society that has traditionally respected teacher. Earlier times, a teacher was an extremely respected person. The teaching profession was extremely respected. Maybe some of you would say these days we've lost some of that respect. But even today, teaching is considered to be an extremely respectful profession. So we should celebrate being a teacher. We should be proud of being a teacher because we live in a country, a society that is traditionally and even today respected the teacher. We not only impart knowledge and skills to our students, we develop their personality. So this is something that we should always keep in mind. We're not in the business of just giving knowledge to our students. We are actually taking care of their personality. We shape the future of our students, and through them, we shape the future of our society and the country. Right? Our responsibility goes beyond the classroom. beyond a single student, to helping our society and the country develop. So we can be very proud of what we are doing. We are role models to our students. Another reason we should be proud of being a teacher. Our students always look up to us because they consider their teachers role models. They emulate them, they copy them, they follow them because they consider the teachers to be role models. And we are in esteemed company. These are few slides I always put up when I interact with teachers. That when we look at the history of India and when we look at our society even today, we find that teachers have always been respected and teachers are respected even today. So we can always be proud of being a teacher. Let me give you a few examples. We are looking at Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, whose birthday is considered to be Teachers' Day. We celebrated Teachers' Day just a few days back on the 5th of September. Here we are looking at the second president of India who considered teaching a noble profession. And if we are in the same profession as Radhakrishnan, whose birthday is celebrated as Teachers' Day, we should be extremely proud of being in the teaching profession. So the story goes that he was asked how he would like his birthday to be celebrated. And he said, if possible, please celebrate it as Teachers' Day. I don't want to celebrate myself. I want to celebrate the whole teaching profession. So from that then on, 1962, when he became the second president of India, his birthday has been celebrated as Teachers' Day. Here we are looking at another president of India, a face all of you know. We are looking at Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. And towards the end of his life, as we discussed earlier, Abdul Kalam is remembered as a great scientist. We call him the missile man of India. We also know that he had a contribution to make in space technology, India's space program, and later he became the president of India also. But what he liked most was being a teacher. Dr. Kalam was asked towards the end of his life, what would he like to be remembered as? And he said, I would like to be remembered as a teacher. And what he loved the most was being a teacher. Now, look at a person like Abdul Kalam. He loved, he was proud of being a teacher. So we are in great company. We should also be proud of being a teacher. Let us go into our mythology. Here we are looking at Arjun and his teacher Dronacharya. All of us know Arjun is known as a greatest marksman, one who was so good with bow and arrow. And he gave great respect to his teacher Dronacharya. Whenever Arjun is remembered, Dronacharya is remembered. So his teacher is remembered today because of his activities. Um, Another great personality and his teacher, here we are looking at Sikandar, Alexander the Great, who had a very short life, but he achieved greatness that we call him Alexander the Great. And along with him, we see Aristotle, Alexander's teacher. Alexander said, I am what I am because of Aristotle. Another big guru, and this here we are looking at Vivekananda and his teacher, Paramahamsa. Right? Now, whenever Vivekananda is mentioned, his teacher is mentioned. And Vivekananda said, my guru, my mentor, he was my guru and my mentor. What I am is because of him. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is equally remembered along with Vivekananda, another great teacher. Here we know the master blaster, that is Sachin Tendulkar, and his teacher Ramakant Achrekar. Sachin Tendulkar achieved cricketing greatness, but every time he mentioned that it was because of his teacher, his coach, that he achieved the greatness he could. So Sachin Tendulkar and his teacher, Ramakant Achrekar. Uh, Here we are looking at another sports personality, PV Sindhu, who won the silver medal in the Rio Olympics and a bronze medal in the Tokyo Olympics. And she's always remembered as the student of Gopi Chand, Pulela Gopi Chand. So when after the Rio Olympics, when PV Sindhu went to meet the Prime Minister along with Gopi Chand, this was the Prime Minister's statement. He said, Gopi Chand is an example of a good teacher, right? And he was responsible for taking PV Sindhu up to the level where she is today. So whenever PV Sindhu is remembered, Gopi Chand is also remembered. The silver medalist and the coach, and let me take a recent example of the first medal that India won in the Tokyo Olympics was that of Mirabai Chanu, and along with her, whom we see on the screen now, is Vijay Sharma, her coach, and she is given a lot of credit to her coach Vijay Sharma for what she's been able to achieve, a silver medal in weightlifting at the Tokyo Games. Now, I gave you examples of all this to tell you how we live in a society where the teacher is actually worshipped. We live in a society where a teacher is given a lot of respect. So, therefore, we as teachers can be extremely proud of the fact that we are doing something that is important to society and important to our country. Now, when I said important to our country, we can very fast look at why it is important. A demographic advantage we enjoy, demographic population related, that India is a very young country compared to other countries. And therefore, India's future looks extremely bright. If we are able to exploit the youngsters in our country who make up the majority population, then we can become one of the most developed countries of the world today. And therefore, this is done converting this young population into human resource is something that we, the teachers, do. And therefore, what we are doing is extremely important. More than 54% of India's population is below the age of 25. So we have a great job to do. The working population is between 15 and 59 and is about 64%. So this is an advantage that we enjoy in India's population, that India has a young population. Now, what is the advantage that we can derive out of this? That this young population, if it is properly trained, then it can yield a lot of dividend. This advantage would remain with us only for the next 25 years. So it is a small window that we enjoy. And we, the teachers, should be able to help in converting this population into human resource. To exploit this small window, we need to develop our population into human resource. We need to equip our youth with employable skills. Hence, we have what we call the Skill India campaign. And we need to encourage our youth to become entrepreneurs. Hence, we have the Startup India campaign. So, all this is helping young India to develop into productive India, into human resource that can help in the growth and development of our society and growth and development of our country, and that is what is happening. So teachers are role models, and therefore you can be extremely proud of that. What I said is their knowledge base should be good so that students look up to you. Your communication should be good so that you can effectively transfer that knowledge. Your social skills of interaction with your students should be good so that they feel encouraged to approach you and they feel happy in your company. Your social skills should be good. And your emotional stability, that you're able to take risks and you're able to uh, to to keep your cool at extremely difficult situation should be there. And your leadership skills. Students look up to you as a leader. So a teacher leader is an extremely important position. You give them directions, you give them vision and dream, and you show them how you can achieve that. So you are a teacher leader, and you are therefore a role model. Now, let me end by giving you a very famous statement given by a very well-known personality. Albert Einstein said, knowledge and skills alone cannot lead humanity to a happy and dignified life. A student must acquire a vivid sense of the beautiful and what is morally good. Otherwise, with his specialized knowledge, the student will be closely resembling a well-trained dog. A harmoniously developed person is what we should do. So Albert Einstein, no lesser person than Albert Einstein says, our job is important because we are not in the business of sharing knowledge alone. We are in the we are in the business of developing a wholesome, well-developed personality. And therefore, we are doing an important job. Therefore, we should be extremely proud of what we are doing. And if we are extremely proud of what we are doing, we will develop ourselves into committed teachers. And when we develop ourselves as a part of developing ourselves into committed teachers, you should be able to manage stress on the job. As we already said, on the job as a teacher, there are many stressful situations. Therefore, you should be able to manage that stress. And at the same time, you should be able to help your students manage their stress. The students are also undergoing many situations, and you should be able to help your students manage that stress. And finally, let me give you an example of a very well-known personality. All of you would recognize Deepika Padukone, who in 2014 came out into the open. We normally think that actors and celebrities enjoy a great life and they have a stress-free life. But this is a very good example of telling us that life actually is fully stressful because life is full of problems and challenges. Therefore, when we face problems and challenges in the teaching profession, we should not think that it is any way different. Every job, every part of life is full of challenges and stressful. In 2014, Deepika Padukone says, I was diagnosed with anxiety and clinical depression. She came out into the open and expressed her anxiety and stressed that she suffered from stress. To let the world know that this is something that is common in our day to day life. And there is nothing shameful in admitting that stress is something that we suffer from. There is nothing wrong in admitting that. And then getting help to manage your stress, how you should do that. And this is something that I want you to leave this thought with, that our profession, teaching profession, is stressful. Let us learn to manage that. And when we manage our profession, we are also helping your students manage that. And let us also learn to manage our day-to-day life in such a way that we are able to get stressful situations out of it. And therefore, the last points, the takeaways from my discussions with you today. A teacher is a leader. That is the first thing I said. And therefore, fully commit yourself as a leader and show your students that you are a leader. Show your colleagues that you're a leader. And show the place where you're working that you're a leader. So a teacher is a leader, and act as a leader when you're a teacher. Stress is very much a part of human life. Every person undergoes stress. We just saw that point. Even a celebrity, an actor undergoes that stress. And if they can undergo that stress, we as teachers will definitely undergo stress. So stress is part of human life. Understanding and managing stress is essential for a happy and successful life. If stress is a part of human life, you should learn to manage stress so that your life becomes happy, not stressful. You should not remain tense always. So, understanding and managing stress is essential for a happy and successful life. If stress is not managed well, it can lead to distress and depression. Remember that whenever you identify certain things are causing stress in your life, learn to manage that, learn to handle that situation. Otherwise, it can lead to depression and distress. Teaching profession is highly stressful, we saw that, so need to be carefully managed. If stress is utilized to enhance performance, it is a highly satisfying and rewarding profession. So I make the point, teaching is stressful, but we can manage stress. And if we can manage stress in the teaching profession can be highly satisfying and it can be an extremely rewarding profession. These are the final thoughts I want to leave you with, right? Thank you very much for your patient hearing, and I hope you've benefited from what we discussed today, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your very informative and interesting session. And as you have suggested, stress management is a very essential part of our life, and we should properly do it. And if any participant have any questions, they can ask.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, my husband, he's your student. Uh,
Oh, all right. Well,
he
so
just he ju-
first of all, you would give your name and then your husband's
sir,
name.
okay. So my name is Shilpi, and my husband's name is Rituraj.
Or Rituraj. Okay. All
Yes.
right. All right. So please convey my regards to him. Right.
Sure, sir.
And where are you placed now?
Hi, sir.
Uh,
Rituraj here.
yeah, Rituraj. Wonderful that you responded, and good to know that you remember me as your teacher. Right.
Yeah, I was speaking to my wife like all the memories like we shared during our like lectures in our engineering days. So it was
All
nice
right.
hearing you after such a long time.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Rituraj.
Thank you, sir.
What do you do, Rituraj?
I'm currently working with Nokia as a manager.
Acha, Nokia. All right. And what is your wife Shilpi doing?
She is working as a teacher
As a
in a school in Gurgaon itself.
Gurgaon. Wonderful. So that's a perfect combination, actually, right?
Thank you, sir.
You are a technologist and in one of the better companies, Nokia,
Mhm.
and your wife is a teacher. And you should not think that teaching is an easy profession and therefore she should give all the time to you and the family and the home, right? If she is to be a good
Right, sir.
committed teacher, she has to spend time preparing for herself. Otherwise, as you can see, extremely rewarding profession. This is why I mentioned it's a rewarding profession. Imagine one of my old students, Rituraj, remembers me today, and that is the most rewarding part of being a good teacher, right? So thank you very much, Rituraj, and all the best to
Thank
you,
you, sir.
Shilpi,
Thank you,
and the
sir.
family. And the family.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank
So
you.
I ask all the participants to switch on their cameras so we can take a group photograph with the experts.
Yeah.
ಬಾ ಒಂದ್ಸಲ ಏನೋ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಕೊಡೆ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಫೋಟೋ ತೆಗಿತಾರಂತೆ.
Good to see so many young teachers around, right? And so, all the very best to all the young teachers. You are in a wonderful profession, so make the best use of it. And this is coming from a teacher of 40 years, So all the very best to all the young teachers.
Thank you very much, sir, once again for your.
Sir, it was so inspirational, sir. Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
So thank you all. We will meet again at 2:30 for next session.
Sir, thank you.